Hello, everybody. This is Mike from the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. My wife Beth and I would like to invite you to join us each week as we examine life at the intersection of marriage, family, careers, and ministry. Through 28 years of ministry, 26 years of marriage, 23 years of professional careers, and 21 years of being parents to 3 kids, our fun and honest discussions promise to have something for everyone. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Hey, Are You Still There podcast. This is Mike.
And Beth.
And we're back for another episode, fresh on the heels of the Big 12 revelation that we both reminded or revealed last week to the whole world. You had something that you were going to try. I don't think we had done it yet when we recorded the podcast. It was a brand new sport.
Yes.
Tell us about this sport, Beth. What did you do for the first time?
Pickleball. We had
Pickleball.
lessons. Yes. And it was so awesome. Yes. I now love pickleball.
Oh, where did tell us? Tell the world. Where's the lessons?
Okay, so
what was it like?
So there was
Who was your competition?
Yeah, there was a flyer at the YMCA. So I looked and I just told Mike, we're going to do this because we talked about learning, and it actually worked out that the time and day we could do. It's just 4 weeks of lessons. So when we showed up, we didn't know what to expect, and there was this little older lady giving us name tags and said to put it in the center of our shirt. And Mike and I are definitely the youngest, probably by 20 years. I think there were...
And we're 50.
Yeah, there's 6 people in the class. There's 6 people in the class. And I don't know, though, that one couple may be 60 or 65.
They're retired. Yeah. Everybody else in that class is retired. Well into retirement age.
And pretty old. Yeah, I mean, not to be mean, but much older. And our instructor is this older guy, and he told us how he was going to start at the basics through kindergarten and go to first grade. He was just going to start very, very basic. And so, I didn't know what to expect, and I've never been a good athlete. I probably got into my head. There were very few things I excelled at athletically. So, for example, I would get all nervous even during field day and stuff because I just wasn't very good. Now looking back, I used to play basketball with Jacob, and I could sometimes do better than him in our driveways, but I just never, it's a whole long thing, but I didn't get to play sports.
To be fair, Jacob was 6.
Well, no. Anyway, I didn't get to play sports in school, so I always just felt like I wasn't a good athlete. And then the one thing I excelled at is in field day, I would win the hula hoop contest. I could hula hoop longer than anyone else.
Work those hips, honey.
But that was about that's about the extent of my athletic ability. And yes, I run and I exercise, but it's not like I'm good at those either. I run for me, but I don't even get close to placing in my age group or in, anything like that. So I'm just not very talented. But anyway, so the guy tells us at first we just practice throwing the ball to get kind of the hand motion. And he worked with us on that. And then eventually he showed us how to hold the paddle and stuff. And then he told us to go hit the ball against the wall, and he told us kind of where to hit it and what to do. And I was trying really hard to do what he told me to. And so then we got to the net to face off and actually start finally hitting the ball to each other. And he said, I want to demonstrate with Beth. I can tell she was listening to everything I told her to do. And then when he was hitting it to me, he was saying things like, excellent. Everybody stop and look at Beth. I'm going to demonstrate with her. And I was like, this is the first time in my entire life that I have ever been in an athletic thing. And people are like, everybody stop and look at Beth. She is doing an excellent job, exhibiting excellent form.
You were so inspired. You came home and threw your $20 racket in the closet and ordered a $200 one.
No, I did not. But I am already thinking about, I think our rackets were smaller than others. So I need to research that. And I was already going to get one of those things for the driveway so that we can practice. And yeah, and then later I thought about it and I was like, well, considering I'm 20 years younger than everybody else in there, I guess it probably wasn't quite the feat that in my head it felt like it was. But it felt really good to be like good at something.
Get one of those nets for the driveway. We have a good driveway spot.
Yeah.
You know, kind of our driveway's a hill that goes up, but where it flattens out.
It'd be a good
worked
spot.
fine for a basketball half court little thing for a while when we had a basketball goal and Jacob was playing it, but we could do a pickleball court there.
I think we could, and I want the whole family to do it, but nobody's really interested in it but you. But
don't sound so disappointed.
I mean, well, I'm just saying everybody else. Josh is like, oh, I'm not interested.
I ain't got anybody else to do it. I might as well do Michael. It's either Michael or a wall, and I guess a wall would be preferable, but I don't really have a good wall, so I'll just use Michael.
Well, and now I'm just like intent on continuing to be the MVP or the best player in the class or whatever. So that the instructor was like, if you come hit this ball against this wall and practice like I told you to, you know, you're going to improve and you're going to come back next week and you're going to be good. So I went for 45 minutes today and just hit the ball. And then when I was doing it, this other really old lady was walking. You know how there's like a walking track? Well, she was walking downstairs to get up to the walking track at the Y, and she's like, oh, you're going to be really good. Probably because she could see me like dripping sweat and stuff. And all I could think about as I'm like dripping sweat and exhausted is when we were talking to Kip about wanting to play, and he had played before. And I was like, oh, is it a good workout? And he's like, only for people who aren't any good. Because like you know, if you're good, you just kind of like.
You learn placement.
Yeah, but like for me right now, it's a good workout. I was like dying, like running around trying to hit the ball and get my form down.
I mean, it was.
Yeah.
You know, it was a good workout. I was dripping sweat.
I was too. I was shocked that like I would be, but it was so much fun. And now I see why everybody loves it. And I can see though too, because he tells you to kind of bend your knees and stuff. So you can see how it would like strengthen your muscles some, but but you can also see why it's not like people aren't like slamming the ball like they do in tennis necessarily or something at you. So it's not like, I don't know. You can see why it would be exercise, but you could probably do it at a lot of different ages and fitness levels or whatever.
Well, I ran into yesterday, I think it was, at Panera, my friend Jacob, who is associate pastor at a church here in town. And he goes to a church that they dress up a little more than we do in our church, you know? So he'll come by there and get coffee and sit and do his devotionals and stuff, kind of like I do before he goes into the office. But he's always dressed up, you know, pants and a golf shirt or something like that. But yesterday he was in shorts and a t-shirt. And I was like, whoa, Jacob, like, today ain't Friday? Because he takes Fridays off. So usually that's when I see him dressed down. I was like, what's the occasion? And he was like, actually, he's like, our staff is getting ready to head over to, you know, the park in Kernersville right behind the water tower.
Yeah.
Where they just built several pickleball courts. And he was like, we're having a staff day and we're going to go over there and play pickleball together.
Nice.
And I thought that was really fun for them.
I do too.
You know, just to
That's
get
awesome. Just
the
to
team
get out
together. And I don't know how many's on his staff. They got a good sized church, but whether it's 4, 6, 8, whatever, they were going over there to play pickleball.
Well, I'm already envisioning, like, I'm just going to practice all the time. And then, like, I'm going to be somewhere and somebody's going to look and underestimate me. And then I'll be like, no. And I will come in and, like, be an amazing pickleball player.
Well, you're 50. You look 30. I don't think anybody's going to underestimate you. They're going to be like, what is this? What's this youngin' doing over here? This, you know, stick to some other young person's sport. This is ours. I feel like
the old people resent the young people for coming in and doing it. Well, because like Jacob and his former roommates did it. So like 20-somethings do it. Yeah.
There's a lot of retired athletes that are getting into it now.
Yeah.
You know, it's obviously easier on the body, but it keeps those competitive juices. And when I say retired, they're probably still younger than us.
Yes.
You know, so, you know,
I just think it's fun because I needed something too. Like, I do exercise a lot, and I know people are like, oh, you love to exercise. I do not love to exercise. In fact, I probably despise exercising, and it takes a lot of like willpower to make myself exercise. But I like how I feel after I exercise. So that's why I do it. I mean, I know it's good for my body, but also because I feel better mentally after I exercise. So that's why, but like, this is fun enough that I feel like the time, doing something with somebody competitive, I just feel like the time goes by faster. Just like if you walk with a friend, it goes faster. If you run with a friend, that goes by faster. Sometimes classes do. So I feel like this will be a good thing to kind of help me just do something different and be engaged. I don't know. I feel like just with my personality, you've seen it. Like I get on these kicks where I'm riding my bike outside all the time, and then I'll do that for like a year or two. And then it's like, now I'm all into spin classes for like a year or two. And then it's running. So this is probably my new,
that's the Enneagram 7 in you, jumping all over the
obsession.
place.
But I stick with them a while,
A little while, yeah.
And I go back, like now I go back and ride the bike some and stuff like that. But yeah.
And I hate exercise too. I do not exercise. Like,
I do probably.
I don't even
I
like
try to do
taking
5
walks.
days a week, 5 days, I'd say.
And that's one thing I'm really thankful. My friend, I'll call him Ross. He's on me every day. Let's go play disc golf.
Yeah.
We have a disc golf course at our church, and it sounds like, what's the problem playing disc golf? Sometimes I don't even feel like doing that.
Yeah.
But I know I need to physically.
Right.
So if I'm gonna exert any amount of physical energy, I want it to have some type of competitiveness in it. I want to be chasing something or something chasing me.
Right.
I want to, whatever, whether it's a pickleball, I played soccer well up until my knee was shot, and couldn't do that anymore. But yeah, so I've got to have something. What's the carrot at the end of the stick for me? And so that's why I think I'll like pickleball, because it'll keep the competitive juices flowing enough to inspire me and force me to get out there and be physically active.
Plus some of the things you've loved, like you said, like soccer or even disc golf to a certain extent, some injuries and stuff have hindered your ability, and hopefully this will be easy enough on the body. Like it'll keep us, we can still
I've got to conserve my body for that naked 5K.
Oh gosh, please don't. Okay.
Everybody
thinks you've lost
You want
your
to
mind.
tell everybody what Charles said to me yesterday. He sent you and I a message.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's see. Let me get, I just like that Charles made the comment like that he agreed with me.
He did agree with you.
He said, "You are a knucklehead, Mike. How are you going to run a naked 5K when you can't even run a regular 5K?" And said, that when you make it a mile and you have to walk the last 2, everybody's going to be able to see your naked glory for a lot longer time. So you're just prolonging the time.
I did. Then I asked Charles, I said, "So are you saying you want to train me?" And he said,
that's when he said, "I'm with Beth. I think your lack of sleep apnea machine has given you brain damage." So I'm just glad to be agreed with on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that agree with you on that.
Yes.
I did my second improv class.
Yes.
This week. It went better than the first week in some regards. So I didn't feel like there was anything that stretched me like the song thing did. So everything this week was I had a little bit better control of.
Yeah.
But it was neat. I mean, doing some things and hearing them critique you. I'm not in a position where I get critiqued.
Yeah.
Ever. Except by you. Like nobody comes up to me at the end of the sermon and they're
Well, it's not like when I was in law school, we did mock trial prep and moot court and different things. And sometimes you were videoed and watched it. Sometimes people critiqued you. And so, early in your sermon time, people would have. But once you've done something long, no one comes and gives you any constructive feedback, really.
But I like that. I found as much as helpful constructive criticism and criticism has such a negative connotation. And I hate to even use that word. But
that's why I think constructive feedback.
Constructive feedback.
Yeah.
As painful as it is as a Enneagram 1 to want to be perfect, I like the fact that there's something I can work on. Yeah. And I really do try to take to heart everything the instructor, which I found out her name's Jenny.
Oh, okay.
Everything that Jenny is telling me, it makes sense. And it is not just applying it to the improv class. It's oh, I can apply this to my normal speaking life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I enjoyed getting critique this week. Like I found that was kind of like, the first week you talked about that good nervous. I haven't done anything where I had butterflies in a while. And this week I felt the sting of not doing something just right.
Right.
And, but it was coming from a helpful place. I was just telling Josh, it was funny. We were listening to a Nate Bargatze stand-up routine or something on the way to school or back from school the other day. And Nate, he has a few different clips where he talks about he doesn't speak words good, and he talks about things he says, like, he's like, I can't say the word oil, He's like, is it oil? Like, he talks about that. And I told Josh a story. One time I said, how do you pronounce the word if? How do you pronounce it, Beth?
If.
Okay, well, I don't. And Josh said if. And I said, well, evidently, I just say the word, I pronounce it F.
Oh, yeah.
What's F?
The letter.
The letter. And so I was up preaching one Sunday, and I guess in that, I was like, F, you're going to do this, or F, you're going to do that, blah, 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 blah. And I had a couple come up to me laughing after the service. And they were like, I'm sorry, we could barely listen to your sermon today because we noticed you don't know how to say the word if. You say F.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because you can't say if. Now, that was unhelpful constructive criticism. I wanted to strangle those two people. And I just sat there and, I can be pretty quick witted. And my go-to is to be a quick-wit bully. Like, oh, you want to go? I can just chew you up and spit you out, like, and make you leave here crying kind of thing. And it took everything within me as a pastor not to do that day. Now, those two knuckleheads are no longer at our church, thank God. Because I've thought about that. I can't even tell you how many times I've got up to preach and I've thought about F versus if. And so there's some criticism that isn't helpful. You know, it's just what I'm, I don't have perfect dialect, so be it. But for Monday's class, I felt like, all right, this is good, helpful stuff. I realized that I could have improved on this. I see where I did this wrong, or I didn't exactly understand the instructions. And so, I should have asked more questions, that kind of thing. So improv went good. We're going back for week 3. This week, those of us in the class, if there's enough of us that want to, she will teach another 3-week class, kind of improv 102 or 201, whatever you want to call it. And then at the end of that 3 weeks, that means we would have had 6 weeks of lessons. We'll get to do an improv show, and it'll be open to the public.
Which should be cool. Yeah.
If I do it. Yes, it will be cool.
You'll have to do it if you do that.
I thought about it. I could do it and not even tell anybody.
Well, yeah, but I think you've got to do it whether you tell people or not, just to do it.
Yeah.
And have that experience. Yeah. I'm speaking this weekend too I'm a guest speaker, a trusted speaker.
Yes, you are.
I'm going to speak. Their theme is about blessings. I hope I don't crash and burn because not coming at the blessings probably from the way most people do, just about like being happy
blessing.
And just.
That's what I think. Every time I hear the word blessing, I think of a Christmas vacation.
Yeah.
Where they're going to say the prayer around dinner and the old lady's like, no, the old man's like, the blessing.
Well, and I think it's one of those things I struggled with it because I think when people are like, oh, well, our theme's blessings, they probably want you to come in there and just be like, everything's just hunky-dory. But like, then I went back and I looked at like, Jesus Beatitudes. And it's like, okay, when is Jesus saying you're blessed? And when you look at that, it is not like pretty much, not only is everything kind of irrelevant as to regard to your circumstances in life. Because, now everybody's like, oh, we got a new car. We're so blessed. We got a new house. We're so blessed.
#blessed.
We had a kid. We're blessed. We, we're healthy. We're blessed. Okay, well, what does that say about everybody who doesn't have a new car or everybody who isn't healthy, like, are they not blessed? No. And so, well, no, but like when you look, and that was the other thing, not only is Jesus' whole talk about blessings, not about your circumstances, but some of it's even like, hey, when you're persecuted, you're blessed, it's even like,
Lucky
like,
us.
yeah, exactly. And so we'll see if I can pull off making this still positive and inspiring, but also I think a little more grounded and realistic about blessings. Because I don't know why. That's just one of the things. I think ever since I had that placental abruption and was in the hospital with Jacob for those 12 weeks, I just remember because the nurses would come and talk to me, and I was their longest term patient they'd ever had, in the hospital. Because most people come in a few days and go home, and they would tell me sometimes, so-and-so just went home with a healthy, they wouldn't tell me their names, but we just had a patient that went home with a healthy baby, or we had a patient who didn't have a good outcome. And I remember that just made me start thinking about like being blessed and praying and stuff. Like, is it some kind of competition? Like, because people are praying for me, I'm going to be more blessed or, have a better outcome. That doesn't seem very, fair and godlike, So I think that that's one of those things I've carried with me since that first pregnancy, when all those things went wrong, and I feel like everybody was trying to be like, kind of almost like,
how would you describe your marriage
do?
To me? Like me personally.
What does what does this have to do with this?
Am I a blessing? Do you feel blessed to be married to me, Beth?
I was like, I'm not even going to honor that with like, I'm not even going to.
I'm not going to be brought up tonight?
No, I'm saying this.
My husband is a blessing to me.
It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. It would be an example of what you don't say. Because again, this goes back to, what about somebody that's prayed for a husband and doesn't have one, or
Maybe
somebody that lost their husband?
Sometimes trials are blessings, and you could talk about our marriage being a trial. and the blessing is the 3 kids you got out of it.
Okay. Oh, goodness. See, you just take things down a road sometimes. Anyway, I'll report back on how it goes once I've done this talk. We'll see.
All right.
It'll just be interesting. Different audience. I don't know these folks. I've never been to this church, so it'll be interesting. Yeah.
You better be making some money.
Kind of like your improv. You're going somewhere, doing something it's even, speak a lot, but it's different when you're speaking for a group. You don't normally speak. It's a different dynamic, because we know kind of our people, even if visitors show up, you still kind of know the vibe, so it'll be different.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I had some folks ask that, they listened to the podcast and they heard us talk about our Big 12, and they were like, so is that y'all's bucket list? Like, have you, what you did on your Big 12, is that like kind of some bucket list items that you just wanted to get done? And I honestly don't have a bucket list. Like, I don't keep up.
I don't do bucket list either.
No. And so, no, these were very impulsive. It was an impulsive bucket list. It was a set of goals that we want to accomplish, in the year between age 50 and 51. Mm-hmm. But there's not something like I've always sat around and dreamt, oh man, one day I'm going to get a tattoo, or something like, like whatever. And so for me, I thought a lot about it. And I think as far as bucket lists go, I only have 2 things on my bucket list, and they're both career focused. Mm-hmm. As far as ministry. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have these when I first started out, but as I got into ministry, the longer I was in it, and more pastors that I knew were dropping out. Mm-hmm. I come to learn the average lifespan of a pastor is pretty short as far as in the career.
Yeah, they don't stick with it.
They just don't.
Like,
it's so hard.
Yeah, it just crushes your soul sometimes.
And so I kind of was like, I think I'd like to be in it 30 years.
Yeah.
There's 30 years in any profession. Mm-hmm. Lawyer, nurse, doctor, police officer, teacher, whatever. Mm-hmm. There's something to be said about that. And that's a man-made number. But there's something about that 30-year mark. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had set that, like, I'd like to be in ministry 30 years. Mm-hmm. And I remember when COVID hit, all of a sudden it was like,
maybe I won't hit that goal.
let's reduce it to 25 years.
Since people are crazy.
I was like, in 2020, I'm like, I remember telling God, I'll give you 25 years. Yeah. I can't do 30.
Yeah.
And then there was moments in that year where I felt like, I will give you till the end of this year. Mm-hmm. like this is all I've got in me. I cannot do it. But we came out of COVID. I kind of caught a little bit of a second wind, and life kind of started getting back to normal a little bit. And it was a nice reset for our church, and it was a nice reset for me. So next month, May, will be 29 years in full-time ministry. And so I make the joke a lot that next May I'm retiring, which people think I'm picking, but I'm only half picking. I really I mean it. I tell people when I talk about it, I'm like, my goal is to make it to May 2026. If I can do that, that's 30 years. After that, God and I are on a month-to-month contract.
You're on a month-to-month contract, with 10 days notice, either party can cancel this contract.
So the countdown, it will be on come next month, you know. The other bucket list item, and this was never one when I was young because I didn't even know this existed hardly, was short-term mission trips. Right. You and I have both been blessed. There you go.
There you go. Don't use that word.
But I think that you can use it in this term.
Yeah, because that's kind of like you're doing something for God.
Yeah,
or whatever.
We have been fortunate, blessed to go on many short-term mission trips. And so at some point in my life, I thought it would be cool to do, for me, 52 mission trips. And why? And I even had a couple people like, why not just 50? Because most of my mission trips are at least a week. And so I thought it would be cool to spend a year of my life on the mission field. A year is 52 weeks. But I don't know, there's missionaries who do this every year, right? Yeah. But I honestly have never met another pastor that has been in full-time church ministry for 30 years and did 52 mission trips.
Right.
Did a year's, 29 years you were at the church.
Yeah.
But 1 year combined, out of all those 30 years, you spent them in other places in the world. And so I'm coming into this year with 49 mission trips. And I've got 50 coming up in June, 51 in July, 52 in August, and then I'll have 53 in October. And so I have 4 mission trips that I'll be doing this year, and it'll push me over that. And so,
which an interesting thing is, though, too, our kids got an unfair advantage if they ever had a goal like that, since, we were taking them in 5th and 6th grade, but for both of us, we didn't go on our first trip till 1998, right? When, I think, wasn't that it?
Yeah, 98.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so that's what makes it, I think.
We've crammed it in,
Yeah, that's been a lot.
52 mission trips and 20-some years.
Now, I haven't done 52 because I didn't get to go when I was...
Well, you were just home making babies.
I've done...
And you work a job that's not as easy. That's kind of built into my job, that if you want to go serve people for Jesus, that's kind of expected. Nobody in the law profession expects you to go serve people for Jesus.
I think when I last checked, when I tried to count it up, I've done 25.
Okay.
So you're double.
About right. I hear people say you're half the woman I am.
Oh gosh, please. But yes, I think I'm about at 25. But Jacob, this is why I say this. I counted he's 21 and he's already done 12.
Yeah.
And so now he's done the most of any of our kids. But still, to your point, given that I didn't start trips until I was already an adult out of college, in law school, and to your point, I have a very demanding profession. Because also too, especially early in my career, it was like you've got 2 weeks off. And so you had to try to use that for a family vacation. You hope you couldn't, easily go and do stuff like that. So, yeah.
So for bucket list, that's all I got. Anything else earthly, I don't care. I don't care if I ever get to certain countries. I don't care if there's certain things I experience. I got the 30-52, that number, just because I think that's rare.
I think so too. Yeah.
Profession. But you don't really have bucket lists
I don't either. And I think that's weird because I'm a very goal oriented person. And also if we talk about the way we talk about I want to have a trip or I want to have this. I think for me, the problem with bucket list is, thank goodness we don't know our end date, your expiration date. It feels too arbitrary to say, I want to do these things in my life. And the reason, so hear me out. The reason I think that is Big 12 makes more sense to me having like sort of a more, like a time frame a year or two out that's close, because that pushes me to have an end date.
So like a mini bucket list.
Yeah, because
like these are the things I want to accomplish in the next 12 months.
Yes, because the problem with bucket list is, I think it's like everything else. Is it really a goal? Because what I think happens to people is they're like, okay, I want to go to all 7 continents, like let's say. Well, then they get into their career and they have kids, and it's easy to just be like, I want to get all 7 continents before I die. You know, I live on one of them, so I've got 1 out of 7. But it's too easy to just push it off. So unless you're a person who can have a bucket list, like, I want to do this before I die, but I'm going to do this in the, next 5 years and save my money. Unless you're really methodical and diligent, I think, about planning, I don't think it happens for a lot of people, because I think it's like everything else. You're always like, I'll do it tomorrow, or when life slows down, when my kids are older, I'll do this, or when my job is less demanding, I'll do this, or when I retire. I think that's why for me, and this is a personal thing. For some people, like I said, I think they probably can pull it off. But for me, for goals, I have to have some sort of time frame, and it has to be reasonably close too, because if I'm like, well, I want to do this in the next 10 years, 10 years is so far away. Now, I mean, I do save for retirement and things. That doesn't mean I'm not like investing in my future. But even with saving for retirement, I don't have like some number, like I've got to have this much money. I mean, I'm just doing what they tell me I should be doing to hope I'll be able to retire one day, and that we'll have some retirement. Like, so I think that's why with bucket list, I'm just kind of like, nah, I'm not a bucket list person. I just, I don't know. I just don't think that it works for me. So instead I do, like you said, I do more short-term goals. And I can even have some short-term goals that lead to longer-term goals, but it's not
we could not agree on a poll question last week. So I didn't put one up.
Right.
But that can be the one for this week. Do you have a bucket list?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
And then if people want to comment and tell us some of the things on their bucket list, that would be great.
Yeah.
But do you have a bucket list? Yes or no? That will be the poll question this week.
And I will say the one other thing is, it's kind of like you though. My whole thing, because I do joke about it. I mean, I do think about like, what do I want to be remembered for? Well, I want to be like, I want to make an impact. I want to have a purpose. Well, yeah, that too. But more like, it's kind of like I did say the other, I mean, I hope like I'll model for my kids and family and friends. I hope people will look and be like, she managed to squeeze out every bit of like life out of life, like I think that's, if I had a bucket list, it's really that, like, I just want to live my life, and I don't always accomplish this either. So that's why I think it's not a bucket list, but like, that's one of my driving goals, is just like, I don't want to be one of these people that takes life for granted. I want to continue to see, like, I don't know, the joy and the beauty and the stuff like that, which can be hard when life is hard, And then, of course, I want to be remembered as a great wife and mom and pastor's wife, all those things, And I want to do things that matter. But again, those are abstract, So, like, how do you measure, did I do things that matter? So that's why I don't consider those like bucket list kinds of things.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you dropped a term on me this week, and I got to be honest. I try not to ever do this. We were playing a board game this past week with Ross one night. And
is this when Maria played too and yelled at him?
No, this is before that. This is before that. Ross is still suffering from that.
I thought so.
PTSD from that night of Maria yelling at him.
Yeah.
She got to feel he got to feel the wrath of Maria.
Yeah.
Like he's got to see firsthand
and like,
how competitive our family is.
Yes, as opposed to just like, oh, sweet little Maria, who's funny and full of joy. Yeah.
Well, you did something playing, and I tried just to explain, like, well, here's, blah, blah, here's something else you could have done. And I didn't mean it chauvinistic, but you were like, I don't need you to mansplain it. Isn't that the word?
Yes, stop mansplaining. I got it. Mm-hmm.
I'm here on public record. I wasn't trying. Like, I wasn't treating you any different than I would have treated a man. Like,
I can't really defend myself because I don't remember what it was you were mansplaining to me. But I think it's more sometimes like, it's things like, I don't know.
How prevalent do you think mansplaining really is? Like, you're in the
In the
world.
workplace?
Yeah, you're in the
Very.
workplace.
Because
do you
I
feel like
sit
men
there-
talk to you like you're an idiot?
Yes. And especially because until they get to know me, and probably until I have a Ross Maria interaction and they see me very serious, because I mean, I'm the same person at work for the most part that I feel like I am at home. Maybe not quite as, silly or whatever, but I like to laugh. I like to joke. I like to be personable. I like to build relationships. But I mean, when I have to be serious and stuff, I can be serious. And so I think sometimes when people initially, work with me or what have you, they may think, oh, well, maybe she's not that smart, or maybe she's a pushover because she seems nice or something. But the way it tends to happen at work that drives me insane is we'll be like, of course, I'm a lawyer, and so I'll work with other people who aren't lawyers, and so they all have their expertise. Like, if you're a nurse, you know all about, nursing procedures. If you're a doctor, you know what you're supposed to be doing in surgery or what have you. One of the things that makes me really frustrated is and this is a good thing. I love working with really smart people, but when you work with really smart people, sometimes they think that their expertise in like 10 areas of life overflows into that they're an expert on everything. So I may be explaining, well, the law says XYZ, and then they will tell me why I'm wrong.
Do women not?
But it's the tone and the way, I think, that men, when they mansplain, it's almost like, oh, look at you, aren't you cute? Let me tell you how this really works based on my 5-minute Google search that I did before this meeting. I know you've spent 20 years of your life doing this kind of work, but due to the fact that I carry a Y chromosome, I'm so much smarter than you are, and I'm going to mansplain it to you.
Well, I just figured I triggered something, because that came out. You've never said that to me.
It had probably happened at work or something. Somebody had probably said something.
In your career.
It does.
Because,
yes.
I mean, I was just saying, all right, in this game, blah, blah. Well, I don't need you to mansplain it.
Yeah.
And then I used a term, and I'm not going to take credit for inventing this term. I used it. Ross thought it was brilliant. Ross did a quick internet search, could not find it anywhere. So I'm going to say I coined this phrase.
Ooh, okay.
If there's a term called mansplaining, I use the term shelaborating.
Well, because we have to elaborate on so many things.
And it's mostly lady folk
who
do that.
I'm on that.
Yeah, and so I guess men want to over-explain things.
And I feel like they tend to do it on things that are like, I don't want to say techno, but you're right. Yeah. Like the men are like, well, let me explain to you how this works, or let me tell you, it'd be like it's almost like if a man came and said, okay, well, let me tell you how to go through labor and it's like, because you've delivered so many babies, it's that kind of thing. But I feel like with women, I think it's more for us. We're like, let me take you down through the process that led to this conclusion.
I can see that living with two women in this house, you and Maria. Me and the boys a lot of times are like, all right, let's just get to, what do you want us to know?
Yeah.
There's that shelaborating that goes on. I need to shelaborate and let you know how I came to this conclusion, all the thoughts that went into it, how warm was it that day, what was the color of the sky.
Well, it's kind of like when my mom gives a gift.
How many stoplights did I go through? Yeah.
When there's a story, like my mom will be
That's the joke with your mom, is like there's always a story.
So she'll be like, well, you'll open the present, it's like, here's the shorts, and she'll be like, now, I was at the store and I found this one pair and all the others were not marked down, but this pair was marked down.
Which is fun, and I appreciate that.
And then she will be like, and they have pockets. That's also a joke in our family.
But if she just gave me the gift and didn't say anything to it, I mean, it would feel like a cool gift.
Yes.
And I was like, hey, all right, that's fine.
Right.
But there's that need. Like, I think that for whatever reason, maybe it's our society, maybe it's in the world, men feel like they have to over-explain things. And women feel like they have to over-elaborate. Like, I need to let you know all, because I think in general, women probably do think through things more than men. As far as, there's that great book,
The Spaghetti and Waffle.
Yeah. Men are waffles, women are spaghetti.
Yeah.
Where men compartmentalize all our thoughts in our brains like waffles. And for ladies, what goes on in your brain is like a bowl of spaghetti. You don't know where one noodle starts and the other one ends.
Which is why I can be talking about something and in 2 sentences, you don't understand how they were connected at all.
There's plenty of times I have to stop you and be like, now who are we talking about again?
Yes,
And then you get so angry and you're just like,
but
I told you I was talking about so-and-so.
But on
and
the
like,
shelaborate thing, but to your point though, too, sometimes I think I need you to know because like, again, I think it's this dynamic that feeds off of each other because a lot of men too are like fixers. So if I'm telling you about somebody that made me mad at work and you want to jump into whether you call it mansplaining or whatever, like telling me like, oh, well, if you just say this, I feel like I have to shelaborate so that you will understand. I have not only already thought about, I'm going to preemptively show you that I've already thought about everything you're going to try to point out. And sometimes I have to build the story so you can truly understand. Like if I'm telling you a story about, somebody at church or work or a friend, so you can understand how irrational they are, which led to these series of events or led to my conclusion about them.
Let me get this right. It's because of mansplaining.
We have to shelaborate. Yes.
So this really goes back to the garden. At some point, Adam was mansplaining.
Yes. And then
the apple and the tree.
And Eve came in and was like, let me shelaborate in response.
But she only shelaborated because Adam was mansplaining.
Right, because the root of the problem is mansplaining.
All right.
So if men never started mansplaining, we'd probably never shelaborate.
I really try not to mansplain.
I know you do. And you are, as people would call it, an ally of women. I think you try to be very thoughtful in the way that you speak to Maria and I and respectful and all of that in those ways. But not everyone is like that. And so, sometimes it definitely happens. And not just in the workplace. It happens a lot in the world. I just feel like, sometimes at work is where women may see it more.
Right. Well, the last thing I wanted to kind of talk about, I've been wanting to talk about this for several weeks. As a pastor, most people think my whole job is preaching, right? Like I just sit in my office all day, 5 days.
And dream up sermons.
Study and dream up sermons and whatever. And then Sundays I preach, right?
And you spend all day on one verse of the Bible dissecting
dissecting the Hebrew and the Greek. And, whatever. And that's not true at all. The majority of my life, when I look back at these now almost 29 years of ministry, has spent in counseling.
Yeah.
Counseling back in the day, teenagers and college students and then adults.
And their parents.
And so there's one thing that I do when I do premarital counseling. It's the very first exercise I give them. The first bit of homework is I tell them to go home and come back the next week with their top 10, I call it unspoken marriage commandments. What are some things that are like a 10 commandment to you that you learned in your household growing up that your spouse may not know? And I do that because I saw it in our own marriage early on. We had some unspoken commandments that I would get angry about because I just assumed everybody was raised this way. And the same with me, like, well, why are you acting this way? That's not how I saw it. And I've done some counseling here recently in the last several weeks with adults who have been married now for years. And it becomes evident sometimes when I'm sitting down that they're still dealing with issues based on their upbringing and assumptions that were never communicated and shared. So I'll give you an example of one of mine, and we'll see if you have any for me. For example, a unspoken commandment in my house growing up was you turn out the lights when you leave a room. For whatever reason, my dad had me convinced that if we leave the light on in a room, our electric bill was going to be $200,000. And so every room...
it's like one light is like Clark Griswold in A Christmas Story when he sets off the power grid.
Yes.
You leaving that light on and not being in the room is going to cause the nuclear power to have to come on in the background.
I think I heard... who left this light on more than I heard great job, Mike, growing up. And, you couldn't. Like, if you went, if I was in the living room and the light was on and I went to the kitchen to get a snack and Dad just happened to walk into that living room within that 10-second time period, who's in the living room? Why is the light on? Why is the TV left on? You're wasting electricity. Dad could care less about electricity.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't trying to conserve. He was trying to save those pennies, you know? And so that just got ingrained in me.
Yeah.
And so I just assumed everybody was like that. So we get married. And I remember you would come home from law school or from work, and I could find you in the house just following the trail of lights. Like you'd come home and the house would be essentially dark. I'd be in the kitchen fixing dinner. The living room would be dark. The hallway, the bedroom, all of that would be dark.
You're living like a vampire.
I am. I'm living. Sometimes I'm just burning a candle, right? And I don't even want to use the light bulbs. And you come in, hey, honey, I'm home. And then I look and I'm like, I wonder where Beth is. Well, the light's on in the living room, so she's been there. The light's on in the hallway, she's been there. The light's on in the bedroom, she's been there. Oh, okay, she's in the bathroom. I see the light coming on under the door. You know, it's like you leave this trail.
And in my parents' defense,
they probably tried to tell you.
They did try. This is just a me thing. Because I kind of, they were very big on turning lights off too.
But that was like an ingrained commandment that you turn the lights off when you leave the room. So that would trigger me. I'm sure we got into a lot of petty fights early on in our marriage. Like, Beth, turn these lights off. And why? Why is it so important?
Right.
And all I could come up with, we're wasting electricity, you know, because that's what I heard.
Right.
And now we have lights on all over the place, you know, and we don't have to take out a loan to pay the power bill.
Somehow or another.
Somehow
we haven't
we've
had to
made
yet.
it. You know, for 27 years, we've made it with lights on. And we're not living in a poorhouse, you know?
Yeah.
But that was an example. But I sit down with these couples and they have certain expectations, from chores to who handles the money to even how they raise their kids.
Yeah.
They learn a lot from their own upbringing, and it becomes ingrained, and it becomes their personal 10 commandments that they bring into their marriage. But the only reason that's their 10 commandments is because it was passed on from their parents, consciously or subconsciously. Yeah. There's no and I have to communicate, let's just throw all that away. Why don't you come up with your own new 10 commandments, you know?
Yeah.
Like in your own marriage. And then we go into part 2, which is, how do you want to raise your kids? How do you want to handle your money? Do you want joint banking accounts or separate?
Right.
Do you want, is sitting down for dinner at the dinner table every night important? Is having the TV turned off? I've even had that come up in marriage counseling where one of them will be like, as soon as we sit down to have a meal, the TV has to come on, and and he's watching TV or she's watching TV, and they're like, well, that's how it was growing up in my house.
Yeah.
We ate on TV trays and we just sat on the couch, and the other person was like, well, that wasn't like that. Dinner time was holy time. There was no distractions. Nobody got up from the table, even if you finished eating, until everybody was done, kind of thing. So I find a lot of couples would probably do themselves a big bit of service if they dialed it all the way back to what was some preconceived ideas of what you thought it should be like. But why is it based on that?
But it takes some work because you really have to think about it, because since it's just it's the only normal unless you've lived with someone else or something. Because even living with somebody in college or what have you may be different than being with your spouse. It's not the same. And so I think it just takes a lot of being intentional about trying to figure it out. But I think, because I had to think about this pretty hard. I do think the family dinner time, that was one of the things. We always sat, we always ate dinner. You didn't have the TV on or whatever. You were at the dinner table. I think also this interesting, I don't even know how to phrase this, but we're very, we share our bank accounts, we share everything, but very much this fierce kind of independence at the same time, was instilled in me, of you've got to be able to take care of yourself and know where things are. So for me, it's always been really important, no matter what we share, whether it's, money or how to do things or whatever, I need to know what's happening. I need to be invested in knowing that. And then I was trying to think another one, and this is one though that I think caused...
Which is funny because again, I'm going to keep going back to Nate Bargatze. He talks about how, jokingly, he doesn't even know where they bank. Like, like his wife handles everything.
No, and I can't stand that idea.
But I kind of feel that way. Like, I'm always like, have we paid off this loan? You're like, yes, we paid off that loan like 4 years ago. I'm like, okay. Like, I couldn't even tell you where all of our money is.
Right.
Like, I just, I have this one account, and I know we have money in it.
But like, you share the account, and you can see it. It's not like I'm like, top secret. It's but like I could sit down and show you everything. It's just that for me, I feel like that.
I just trust you to tell me when we need money.
But I think part of it too is you got to look at like when I was born and grew up. Like, I mean, not that my parents thought that it necessarily things into divorce or death or whatever, but things do go wrong. And for women, I think it used to be harder because like if the men were making the money or the men were taking care of all the finances and the woman didn't even know where they banked, that was a really hard thing. And so I think it was like just preparing me to be like, you've got to be independent enough to be able to take care of yourself too. But one of the ones that I think did lead to a little bit of conflict, my parents, as you've seen, and me too, we're very much like, if we put it on the to-do list or the honey-do list, like, you do it now. Like, like, let's not wait 4 weeks. And so I think that's one thing that is one of those rules that makes it hard in my household, because like sometimes you or the kids will be like, why are you nagging me? And I'll be like, well, if you had done what I asked you to do the first 3 times, I wouldn't have to nag you because, it would already be done. So in that way, they aren't really like, you aren't following that unspoken rule that was kind of ingrained, like, okay, well, you've got these 3 things on your list, just do them, just take care of business.
I didn't even know what a to-do list was till I was 36.
But like we would have our things like, my mom was pretty methodical about, on this day, Beth, you dust. And on this day we do this.
Hold up.
I know. I didn't say, but listen, part of this is a rebellion in our household. I'm not going to live like that with you, Mike. You don't get the benefits of that. I have never seen you dust
in 27 years. Ever. So don't be bringing in some fake news stuff.
No,
like that.
talked about, she had, especially in the summer when I was at home, because mom and dad would be at work. And so she would have her days. She'd be like, okay, today's you're going to dust. Tomorrow you clean the bathroom. Whatever day you vacuum, I know. Just like the lights. God. I mean, my parents tried, Mike. They tried so hard. And like, there's just, I think it's a little rebellious spirit or something in there, that's like, I am going to, like right now, I think the closet light is probably on. I think it is. I think, because sometimes I'm like, did I leave that light on? Probably, sorry. I'll work on it. Now that we've been married as long as we have, I'll start working on that one.
With 3 kids, people say, who is your most difficult child? And I always say my mother-in-law's. That's my most difficult child.
Yeah, so funny.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap up with this. I don't want to go real long. Last week was long.
Yeah.
It was like an hour and a half. It was
Lord of the Rings kind of thing. We've got to do better.
I got to be honest. I've listened to every episode we've had. I like to listen to hear how it turns out. Mm-hmm. Last week we had a lot of technical glitches. Yes. We had a bad wire, I think, and so we swapped out the wire. And that's one reason people don't understand. Like, we had to go back and look and be like, where did we end? And had to redo parts of it. It was a mess. It was a struggle. It was not good. But again, we just put out raw what we had. Yeah. So I'm sorry for the technical glitches last week. We're trying.
Mike, if you would get on the to-do list editing this podcast, you could have every one of them exactly 59 and a half minutes.
Before that happens, I have to take a class on how to edit the podcast. I don't know how to do that.
Well, that has to come after pickleball.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I want to keep this shorter than an hour and a half. But one of the things we got to do, we talked about it last week. We had the opportunity, we got to host a trivia night. Mm-hmm. And the trivia night was for couples. It was, that's what it was billed as, couples trivia night. So we thought it would be fun to do trivia based on the 4 pillars of, hey, are you still there? Mm-hmm. So we did 4 rounds. 1 round was about marriage. 1 round was family. 1 round was careers, and 1 round was ministry. So I think Beth and I said for the next 4 weeks, we're just going to tell you guys, the listeners, We're going to go through each one of these, and we'll give you the question and then the answer, just to see. I like kind of listening to the trivia. So for those of you who couldn't make the trivia night live and in person, we have those questions. So we're going to do marriage right now real quick, and we're going to wrap this up with this. So the 10 questions plus a tiebreaker. So number 1 in 10 couples propose at what holiday? 1 in 10 couples propose at what holiday? A lot of people said Valentine's. A couple said New Year's. The actual holiday is Christmas. So 1 in 10 couples propose at Christmas, which is actually when I proposed to Beth, Christmas of 1996. So that checks out right there. The second question, what percentage of people who propose actually get down on one knee to propose? And we made this one multiple choice. So what percentage of people actually get down on one knee? 78%, 84%, 87%, 92%. I know I got down on a knee, I believe. I don't know when people don't get down on a knee. So the fact that it wasn't 100% to me seemed a little odd, but 78, 84, 87, 92, the answer was 87%. So still today in 2025, 87% of people who propose actually do so by getting down on one knee. Third question, how many couples who married last year, married in 2024, met online? Again, we made this multiple choice, 25, 29, 33, or 38%. You know, there was no online in 1996 when Beth and I met, right?
Yeah.
And so how many couples who were married in 2024 met online? The answer is 33%.
And I think it'll only get higher because online doesn't just mean now like dating sites. Like I think about our kids meeting all the people they meet, friends or whatever, on Instagram or TikTok or Chat. Yeah. So they've technically met online.
Yeah. I mean, Jacob would be going out with a girl. We're like, how'd y'all meet? She messaged me on Instagram.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The average amount of money spent on an engagement ring currently.
Yeah.
I went well under this. I don't want to say we because it was all me. Back in the day, even with inflation.
Yeah, I went and pulled up the calculator for inflation and stuff to account for that. But yeah.
And I still came way short.
Yeah.
But in the U.S., the average amount spent on an engagement ring today is it $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, or $8,000? The answer is $6,000.
Yeah.
$6,000.
That's a lot of money on a ring.
Yeah,
yes.
Mm-hmm. So then the next question, question number 5, kind of runs into that a little bit, talking about cost. The average wedding cost of today is another multiple choice. $16,000, $19,000, $24,000, $28,000. What do you think's included in that wedding cost? It has to be dress.
It's the photographer, the locate. See, nobody gets just married at churches anymore. Anything. The location's got a big expense. The food. Yeah. The answer is $28,000, which is crazy. And even for inflation, we went so under that because I remember my parents, it was kind of like, well, you could spend more on the wedding or you can get a washer and dryer. And we were like, oh my gosh, we'll take a washer and dryer for our apartment. Like, I mean, we had nothing. And so we were really more practical in that respect back then.
Yeah. According to brides.com, what month is the most popular month for a wedding? This surprised me.
Yeah.
I mean, that surprised you. What would you have said?
I would have thought it would have been the spring, but it's actually October. It's the fall.
Yeah, so. I wouldn't have thought October. I would have thought, I don't know why, April, May.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But.
Just seems like love is in the air, April and May, you know?
Music. According to Spotify, this Elvis hit was the most popular first dance of 2024. Nobody got this right.
Yeah.
At trivia night.
They were saying things like, ain't nothing but a hound dog.
Well, what was the other one? There was one that was like something.
There was one that was...
that did make sense.
Oh, Suspicious Minds. That wasn't it either.
It had something to do with love.
Yeah, but they did have one.
But the correct answer is, I can't help falling in love.
Yeah.
Which no one had. We did true or false. According to the Census Bureau, the average length on a couple's first marriage is 18 years. Everybody said false, but they went false because they thought it was
less.
well under.
Yeah.
It was false, but it's 21.
Yeah, they're a bunch of pessimists.
They were. And I think what happens with that is they hear probably the average year of a divorce is like, I think it's like 7, something like that. They call it the 7-year itch for a reason. So somewhere between 7 and 10 years is when people get divorced, but they're not considering the actual average.
Yeah,
you know, people go a lot longer than
and
that,
still get
and people pass away. You know, usually sometimes when you get into the 20s, 30s, a spouse will pass away.
Yeah,
you know, and so that kind of ups it quite a bit. How many years is the longest marriage on record? We got a ways to go. We'll be 27 in just a couple of weeks. But is it 79, 81, 84, 87 years?
Yeah, we were like, is this somewhere where people got married at like 2 years old?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it because the longest marriage on record is 84 years.
Which is, I can't even comprehend.
They had to have both been teenagers.
They got married at 15 and then they both lived to 100. And so, you know, it's just crazy. Yeah.
And then the last question we had was the average age of a first-time bride and groom currently.
Yeah, so how old's the bride, how old's the groom, and the average. And
everybody went low there.
Yeah, they did. They thought
they were thinking like 24, 25.
Yeah.
You know, I think in our mindset, it used to be so common, you graduate college and you get married.
Yeah.
So 22, 23. And I think they thought, well, maybe it's not that now. We'll up it a year or two. But they were still well under.
Yeah, because I have a lot of friends who had, I mean, not a lot, but I mean, I have friends who their first marriage for them and their spouse, they were over 40, you know? So the average age for a first-time bride and groom. The bride's 28.
28 for the bride.
And the groom's 30.
And the groom's 30. So, wow.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Which would explain some of the counseling I've done. The longer people take to get married.
Yeah, because you're getting a little more set in your ways.
Yes, you become more independent.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can get married at 22, and a lot of your beliefs are still rooted in how you were raised. You get married at 30, you've had 8 to 10 years out of college, living on your own, doing your own thing, like you said, getting into your own routine. And now you've kind of found what works for you. And now all of a sudden you're married another independent, almost 30-year-old. And
yeah, like my friends that were older said it was really hard too, because like I guess if you get married younger, you just kind of take it for granted. Even though there's some growing pains, you take it for granted, like incorporating in like, oh, we go to your parents for Thanksgiving this year and my parents next year. Or like, oh, that's another thing I think people probably argue about, like how sacred is like a certain holiday and who you have to be with and splitting that time. But anyway, but then I think...
But that's a perfect example. That's another 10 Commandments.
Right, that you would...
Well, we always did Christmas on Christmas Eve.
Day, right,
or Christmas Day at lunch or dinner. And then trying to coordinate that.
And particularly then if you're trying to coordinate not just with like in-laws, but like bigger families, like you've got other siblings and stuff. But that was the thing too for my friends who got married, I think later, was that whole piece of they were so used to like, well, on this night, this is what I exercise. On this night, I see my friends. On this night, I go to this Bible study. They had very rich and full lives before they married. And then you get married and it's like, whoa, they have their own stuff and their family I'm supposed to do stuff with. How on earth do I keep all that? You know, I think it's just harder for them to start to separate those pieces because they've spent so many years just doing those things independently.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we had a tiebreaker question just in case there was a tie, which there was not. According to thenot.com, so you know that it's official. I mean, nothing gets more official than thenot.com. What date is expected to have the most weddings this year? Now, this threw everybody off.
Yes, because they were like, it better be in October.
Right, the most popular month is in October, but the most popular day projected for this year is not in October. It's September 20th.
2025. But it's still that kind of like fallish.
Yeah. And I went back and looked, according to not.com, in 2024, the most popular month was October, but the most popular day was like I think the week before this. It was would have been like September 13th, 14th, something like that.
Yeah.
It was the most popular wedding day of last year. So if you want to get married September 20th.
You better go put some deposits down.
If you don't have a place, you're not going to book
You got to do a
now.
destination wedding or something, or just elope, because you're out of luck. Everybody else has already
Just
booked
get
it.
married on the 19th.
Yeah.
Get married on Friday.
Yeah, or Tuesday. Probably good deals on the place if you do it on like a Tuesday.
Yeah, it makes me think there's a Steve Harvey story where he goes, it's called the ghetto wedding, where his niece gets married. And she invites him to the wedding. And he tries to get out of it by saying he's traveling every Saturday and Sunday for work, for comedy shows. Yeah. And she goes, "Oh, no, Uncle Steve, we're getting married on a Wednesday."
He's like, "Who gets married on a
Yeah,
Wednesday?"
he's like, "Who you know get married on a Wednesday?" He was like, this is going to be some ghetto wedding up in here.
If you get married on a Wednesday, yep. But think of all the money you'd save.
Yeah, she saved a
Hey,
bunch.
we could have probably got married on a Wednesday and still gotten a washer and dryer too. You never know.
I don't know, man. We had a pretty cheap wedding.
Yeah, we did. It was very inexpensive.
Need to get on to your parents about that.
Kept costs low.
They did. Jeez. Anyway, that's it for today.
Yeah.
So good topics today. Good talks.
Yeah.
So we'll put the poll question up.
Bucket list.
Bucket list. Do you do one or not? And if you do, what do you have on it?
Yeah.
You know?
We'll be interested to hear.
Hey, and we're just a shade over an hour. So we've
If
shaved
we hadn't
off.
done the trivia, we would have been under an hour.
Yeah, we would have been. So, I mean,
just Sam, no, we're working on it.
Well, no, Sam was at trivia, so he doesn't have to listen to
Oh,
the
he
last
could just
10
cut it
minutes.
off. Yeah, so
10
then
minutes
it's
of
under an
trivia.
hour
Just
for Sam.
turn it.
Yes.
Hopefully, he turned it off.
Yeah.
Right. He said he didn't make it through the last episode. Anyway, that was fun. Everybody take care. This is Mike.
And this is Beth.
And this has been Hey, Are You Still There?